Gotcha.
Fun of a runaway train, just to feel alive again.
The heavy bone horn is a rarity 6 hunting horn in Monster Hunter World, made from various monster bones and very cheap to build. I actually really like the way the heavy bone horn looks. The weapon model is really straightforward. It's the basic bone horn model. When you look at it, you go, this is the way it was meant to look. And then there's all these copycat horns, right? Where all they did was they added like fur to it or spikes to it, whatever you have, right? They just added that to the original bone horn. And so when you have the original, it looks like, wow, this was its own design, right? It's not just a copycat of another horn. So I really like this one. It's also secretly one of the best horns in the game right now. So let's start breaking down its attributes, and I'll explain why you should definitely want to build this horn and why you should be excited about it. The heavy bone horn has a good attack value of 798, right? It also gets to use the Elementalist gem. It then has 3 augmentation slots, and you can use all 3 of them to increase its attack value. And lastly, the weapon comes with the attack up large buff. So at this point, if you do all of those things I just mentioned, right, if you put them all together, you have reached the attack value of about 1,226. Then, when you put on the attack skill and eat consumables, you can easily reach 1,300 attack with the hunting horn. Finally, I think I should mention that Capcom is about to buff the horns to all do more damage using a self-improvement that will be an attack up buff. So what we're seeing here is probably the highest possible damage output for a horn, especially if you're taking your team damage and adding that to the calculation, right? So when you use that attack up large, everybody on your team is contributing to your own DPS, if because you're the one that put the attack up large buff out, right? So we count that as the horn's damage. Okay, well, let's finish looking at the rest of the attributes really fast, and then we can move on to talking about when you should use this horn. So heavy bone horn gets a hidden element of ice that I would probably never worry about because it's only 240 elemental damage, and honestly there aren't really any monsters that you need to be doing ice damage to. It also gets a plus 10 defense bonus. That's nice. It's not really anything to worry about either. And then finally, it can hold a single large decoration. That's kind of nice as well. One of the downsides to the heavy bone horn is that it has a small blue sharpness bar that can't be turned white with handicraft. So I'll bring protective polish to help counter it, but you see, if we were comparing it to something like the Basil Reed Rookslayer, see, that horn's also a very high damaging horn, and it does get a white sharpness bar, okay? When we look at the horn buffs, of course the main buff we care about is the attack up large. It then gets several buffs that aren't really as good, like it has muck resistance. I don't even know when I'm going to use that. Like, do you really need muck resistance to fight a Barrett? Right? And then you have Earplug Small. Earplug Small really isn't as bad when you're fighting a threat level 1 monster or a threat level 2 monster. Earplug Small will probably help out there. The environmental damage and negated buff is just okay. It helps with acid pools when you're fighting Val Hazak. It also negates heat and lava for when you're fighting Teostra. But, with heat, you can just drink a cool drink, and in general, just stay out of the acid and stay out of the lava, right? Perhaps in the future, it'll help with other problems. I did test it, and it does not protect you from the effluvial damage that you will take from the clouds surrounding Val Hazak. So, if it did protect you from that, it would actually be a pretty good horn for fighting Val, right? Finally, there's one more buff that we care about, and it's the Scoutfly Powerup buff. And the real reason this is a good buff for this horn is because it lets you cue melodies by just spamming your Super Pound. So mostly you'll be focusing on putting out the attack up large buff, and then spamming Super Pound to maximize your output. As for which monsters to use this horn on, you really can use it against anything you aren't worried about having enough defense for. For example, if I had to fight a Tempered Kirin, I might go with a different horn that can provide more defense for my team. This might be true for some of the other Elder Dragons as well. But what's so good about this horn is, other than worrying a little bit about defense, you can use it on any monster and you'll be contributing a lot. It's almost like the hammer of the horn class. You'll deal tons of damage, about 200 per super pound, and at the same time you'll be providing the whole team with a nice attack up large buff. So if you're comfortable with your survivability and your team's survivability, I would say you really could use this against Kieran because your output will be terrific. I think it's actually fair to say that this is a better choice than the Gamma Horn, especially with threat level 1 and threat level 2 monsters, where the earplug small will be, useful, right? With the Gamma Horn, you're going to have the defense and the health boost buff. The truth is, as the community gets better at the game, they don't need as much defense, right? You have more people who are augmenting their armor, right? They don't need the extra defense, so the earplug will help the output a little more, plus the fact that the Bone Horn's doing more damage in the first place. Now, I'll go ahead and show you the build that I'm running. Feel free to share your thoughts on it. If you think it could be optimized more, just let me know. Note that I upgraded and augmented the armor all the way so that I wouldn't be worried about having enough defense, and that way I'm able to play as aggressively as possible. You can see that I have maximum might, weakness exploit, and the attack skill all maxed. I use perfect polish since my sharpness can't turn white from handicraft, and as usual, I always bring the vitality skill because it's just so damn good. Also, you can see that the elementalist gem is there, and I'm using that to boost my damage. Alright, well I hope you found this informative. The Heavy Bone Horn is one of the best horns in the game right now because of its combination of high output and its attack up large buff. The only way it could have been better is if it had more valuable defensive buffs, but that's okay because it's usually better to improve your armor and build specific defense skills for whichever monster you're fighting, whereas offense is useful in any fight, in any situation, and that's why this horn gets an A tier rating. And we're going to be taking another look at the Heavy Bone Horn in the future when I make my top horns guide. I'm really going to be curious about who does more damage. There's a few really high damage horns. Particularly, I'm curious who does more damage, either the Heavy Bone Horn or the Basil Reed Rook Slayer. I think it'll be pretty close. I suspect the Heavy Bone Horn wins in the end because it doesn't use the handicraft skill, but it kind of replaces that with other things, and then it gets the 3 augmentation slots. That's kind of a big deal as well. Alright, well I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Oh my gosh, you guys! I just want to thank y'all so much!